Hi there, and welcome to Talking with Jonny, a wholly owned subsidiary of Driving with Jonny, and I'm Jonny. And a lot to get through this week. I just got back from a big trip where I got to drive the new Lamborghini Temerario, which you see sitting right here. And we'll talk about that model and these models in a second. I also got to drive the Bugatti Mistral, which is a really kind of rare and unique opportunity, especially because I got to drive it with Andy Wallace. And yeah, I'll talk about Andy for a second. So Andy won Le Mans with Silk Cut Jaguar, that amazing car. I want to say it was 89 season. It could be the 88 season. He had some insane stories because I think it was 89, but he was the last of, I think, the winners to drive Cirque de la Sarthe without the chicanes on the Mulsanne Straight. So, back then, they were hitting like 200, I think 248 miles an hour on that straight, and they'd be flat out for like 50 seconds, which is insane. And they what did he say? They couldn't run steel belted radials, so they had to run bias ply tires, and so the cars were geared for like 236 miles an hour. But because of tire expansion from the heat, they calculated they were going 248, and then basically if one of the plies broke, you'd hear like a whack at the rear end, and then it would get so long it would do something where it just flipped the car over. So he said basically you're sitting there just listening for a noise, and you're thinking like, was that it? Am I going to be upside down? And anyways, they won the race, but he was amazing. He also set the production car speed record in a McLaren F1 back in like 97 or 98. He went 241 or 2 miles an hour. Since then, he's been setting all kinds of other speed records, including 304 miles an hour in the Chiron 300 Plus, and he went 282 miles an hour in the Mistral, which is a Bugatti that has no roof. So we'll get to all that. Last week I asked you, I said, you guys want to hear about like watches and doing a watching with Jonny or something like that. And most of you said yes. Some definitely said no. So I'll just be real quick about it. Today I put on, because I got this new bracelet, so kind of matchy-matchy, although this is a little darker. This is a Seiko Turtle that I bought on Amazon for $350, and I actually had it delivered to a dude, and of course now the name's escaping me, but he does fake aging. So I don't know how well you can see this, and I'll get another camera here one of these episodes, but basically he takes it, and it's like a heat and chemical process, and fades out the bezel, so it went from black to this kind of cool faded blue. You can see the indices have been faded to like a cool tropical kind of look. No way you can see it, but the day and the date wheel have faded as well, which looks really cool. And then Horace, again, these guys are giving me no money. They give me a lot of straps and hats. I love Horace. Mark, you're the greatest. But anyways, I put this cool Horace strap on there. It's a dark blue rubber strap. I like rubber straps. And yeah, it's a great watch that like all in, it's like 350 or maybe it was 380 for the watch with shipping. I forget. I think I paid the guy a couple $100. I don't remember. This strap is like an $80 strap, I want to say. So like, for $600 to $700 to $800, which is it's not a cheap watch, but for a medium price watch, you have a real conversation piece, and people always ask me about this watch, and I love it. So there we go. A couple questions to answer, but before we do that, let's just get to the Temerario, which is right here. And the launch was at Estoril in just outside of Lisbon, actually outside of a town called Sintra in Portugal. I've driven that track a few times with Lamborghinis. This is the Lamborghini SVJ model that I got on a launch at Estoril. It's must have been back in 2019, so I've been doing this quite a while. This one, and I think my kid broke the wing off it when he was like 2, but this is the Performante. I went to, I drove the real early pre-production one that was camouflage. Gosh, that was, I don't even know when that was, 17 or something. And that was at Imola. And then I think I went back to Imola for the launch. It sounds ridiculous. I'll put it like this. So every time you fly to Europe or back from Europe, anytime you fly business class on KLM, they give you a little ceramic house that has some gin in it or some kind of booze. I've never bothered to open it. And I don't fly KLM. I'm a Delta guy, and I fly a lot of Air France, and KLM's a partner too, but a lot of Virgin Atlantic. And I have 16 of these little ceramic things, and I've lost a bunch. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just, yeah, it's a lot of air miles. But anyway, so Lambo, yes, they buy journalists with models. This is how they get us to say nice things about their cars. For all you conspiracy theorists out there, or they build good cars. One or the other. I'll let you decide. Temerario. So this thing, I don't even know where to start with it, but like, it is such a jump in terms of performance, not only over this, the Performante, or even the STO. And remember, the Performante had more torque than the STO because the STO was rear drive. They had to limit the torque. It only made 413 pound-feet instead of 443, like the Performante here. But it is a massive jump in performance over this, the SVJ. Um, I blank on the numbers, but the SVJ made something like 740 horsepower, 35, whatever it was, that kind of horsepower. This twin turbo V8 on its own with a hybrid motor in the rear makes 789 horsepower, I want to say. And then you've got two front wheel motors. So the total system output is 907 horsepower. A Porsche 918 Spider, which we can all agree is a hypercar, made 875 horsepower. A McLaren P1 made 903. So this thing makes 4 horsepower more than a McLaren P1. Totally mental. And then to compare these two, because I drove both these on Estoril, I should actually look it up. I don't really do enough preparation for these episodes of Talking with Jonny. But I want to say on the straight, the main straight at Estoril, I was seeing something like 275, 280 kilometers an hour in the SVJ. 304. I saw 304. Saw 301, and then I saw 304. Had one really good session in the Temerario. And 304 is 189 miles an hour on the front straight, which is, and we're doing press car braking, meaning I have this mad, wonderful Italian man named Mario in a Temerario in front of me. And he starts the braking, and I brake where he brakes. Could have gone another, I don't know, 100 feet, something like that. I'm bad with meters, but could have gone a little quicker, but it's just insane. And then there's the handling. It handles incredibly well. Remember, with the Temerario, it's a starting point, so I might say something like, well, the steering's a little over boosted, but there'll be a Performante or an Evo or an STO or a Technica or whatever. They'll do a lot of these super leggera, and things will get better. But as a starting point, it's bonkers. Again, Lamborghini's entry-level sports car makes more power than a McLaren P1, and it's the base car. Totally nuts. This one, I don't know how well you can see this, but there's a little bit of red striping here. They pulled a fast one, which I didn't even know about, and you can see a little bit of ducktail back here. There's an option package, and it's expensive. It's like $49,000 for the pack, but it's called a Legerita, and it means lightweight. It actually means she's light. So Lambo is stating that the Temerario is a she, but she's light. And it also has, I think, 67% better aerodynamics than the base car, and 62% more stability from the aero. So, and plus you get the Bridgestone race tires, which are, that's when I went 304. I was in this thing. So yeah, it's a cool package. For another 20 grand, you can get carbon wheels. I don't think we were running on carbon wheels, and it was a big launch, meaning there was a lot of other journalists there. I only got to drive it on the track, nothing on the street, but as a track car, it was really fun, very easy to drive. I had 9 hard laps. So in other words, you go out for a recce lap, and then you have a cool down lap. But I had 9 like go hard laps. One moment, if you will, and it was in second gear, so it wasn't much of a moment, but it was, I gave it too much juice with too much English on the wheel, and instead of pushing, what the chassis wants to do is just kind of dance a little bit. It wants to, step out, a little bit of oversteer, easy to catch. So monumentally, just great entry level supercar, which has more power than many hypercars. So maybe it's a hypercar What do words mean? I don't know. Then on to France to drive the Mistral. So if you don't know the Mistral, and they didn't give me a toy, just so you know, the Mistral. So Bugatti, when they did the Chiron, and so the Veyron was 1,001 horsepower, 989 really, but 1,001 horsepower. Then the Veyron Super Sport came out, and that was 1,200 horsepower. And then the Chiron debuted almost 10 years ago. I'm getting old. I was there. It's 2017 at Geneva. But anyways, Chiron debuted, and they said they would build 500 Chirons. They did that. They also built 40 Devos, which somehow was a new car. And then they started with the Mistral. Now, famously, they didn't do like a Grand Sport / Vitesse of the Chiron. They put little glass windows in some of them, but they said with that chassis the way it was, that carbon tub, they couldn't remove the roof on the Chiron. So when the Mistral came out, and I think it debuted, 2022 at the Quail, and was beautiful. It's a black and yellow one. Bugatti said it's a different car. They had to do so many changes to like beef up the tub that it just, what is its own thing. If I'm a Chiron owner, am I worried about the 99 other W16s showing up and hurting the value of my car? Maybe. I have money for these. Actually, I get these for free. I don't even have money for these, so I don't know. But I do know the Chiron, 5 million euros, $5.5 million bucks. Sorry, the Mistral, 5 million euros, $5.5 million bucks, and what an experience! What a thing! Like if I was rich, I would 1,000,000,000% have a Mistral. Um, Again, I've been fortunate in my career to drive all this nonsense, and I've driven both varieties of EB110, the GT and the Super Sport, the SS. I drove. I don't think I ever drove a base Veyron, but I drove a Veyron Grand Sport. I drove a Super Sport. I got to drive a Vitesse. I drove many Chirons, Sport. I think it was called Sport. I drove the Pure Sport. I drove the Super Sport a couple times, and now the Mistral. And before the Mistral, my favorite was the Vitesse. As cool as the Pure Sport is, there was something about the Vitesse that, with the roof off, it's hard to explain how wackadoodle the W16 with the 4 turbocharger sounds, but it's just like nothing else in the world. There is no other sound like that. It's 8 liters. So even though the pistons aren't gigantic, I mean, they're half a liter each, very German, even though it's French. Just by having so many cylinders, and having so much displacement, there's this busy guttural noise. It's unlike anything else. And then the wastegates firing on the turbos at various times, just the sounds it makes. I always say it's like a steam factory. Well, the Mistral and the Vitesse had that, and you could really hear it, and going from 1,000 to 1,200 horsepower, there's more boosting, and you just, the noises are better. And then with the Mistral, it just takes it up to an impossible level, which is right here. There's these big intakes. You get one off your right ear as a driver, one off your left ear as the passenger, and the noise is just awesome. And more than that noise, hard to explain, but there's this thing you can do. So the 4 turbos don't run at the same time. You have 2 that are going for low RPMs, and then you have 2 larger ones that turn on around 4,000 RPM. So if you do this cheat thing that Andy showed me, where you sort of like put it in like 4th gear, lug the engine a little bit, and then slowly roll on the power, you'll kind of like slowly roll to 4,000. And then if you do it right, there's this kind of like crack noise where the turbos get the message to open up. And then there's this like eye of the hurricane, like noise for a second, which is just like nothing else I've ever heard. So cool. And I got to do that a few times. We do have a video coming out. Sadly, because we weren't like on a freeway when we were shooting the video, I don't think we got that. We might have had that noise. I'm not sure, but we were purposely doing it on the freeway, and it's just an insane thing. And then, of course, Bugattis They are special. They're worth a lot of money because of what goes into them. It's not, it's easy to sit on your couch and say, oh, it's my marketing hype, but you drive them and you see how they're built, which I got to do. And like lots and lots of cars accelerate as quickly as the Mistral does, quicker even. A bunch of EVs do that, but they don't feel the way the Mistral does. And it's a weird thing to explain, but like as you take off, all other cars, you squat or something happens. A Hummer EV, um, at nighttime, if you launch a Hummer EV, you can't see the road because the headlights are pointing up. The Bugattis though, they don't do that. They just don't do that. They just surge forward, and it's an insane feeling. As you turn, they don't squat or jiggle or move or anything. You like it's weird. Like you can see the imperfections in the road, but the suspension is so sophisticated, you don't feel them. And contrary, I think, to a lot of people think about Bugattis, like they actually handle very well. It's not like a Porsche GT3. The Pure Sport is closer to a GT3 because it's cambered like that. But they really handle rather well, sort of like the way like modern Aston Martins do, only with double the horsepower. And that's the other thing that's crazy is the 1600 horsepower. I think it's actually like 1578 horsepower that the Mistral makes and the Chiron Super Sports make. That's a minimum, and every engine is so hand built. And I got to tour the factory and like, wow, is stuff hand built. Um, like they all actually make a little bit more than advertised, and there's a readout, and you can kind of like floor it. And in the morning when we left for the drive, Andy was showing me, and so instead of 1600 PS metric horsepower, the car we were driving, which was an engineering mule with over 39,000 kilometers on it, it's like more than 25,000 miles, I think, if my metrics right, um, showed us 1612 PS. So it's like 1,590 horsepower, which is just epic. Like what a thing, and beautiful. This one I drove was like unpainted blue carbon with like orangey wheels and orangey leather, and then if you look at the gear selector, there's a little miniature elephant. Well, what's that elephant? Why an elephant reared up on its hind legs? Well, Rembrandt Bugatti was Ettore Bugatti's brother, and he was a sculptor, and he sculpted animals. He would go to the zoo in Antwerp, I think, and he would sketch out animals. I saw a picture one time of him where he was throwing peanuts like in front of an elephant's cage, and the elephant was like squatted down low and sticking its trunk out. And he made a sculpture of that, and then Ettore for the Bugatti Royale, and really became the mascot of Bugatti. He used the elephant reared up on its hind legs with its trunk in the air as the hood ornament, and so they've made a miniature one where they stuck it in the shifter, and it's one of my favorite things. I remember from the press release. I'm gonna butcher his first name, but Aiken, I forget his last name, but is the head of design for Bugatti, was talking about the miniature elephant, saying, yeah, but we could do anything that the owner wants, like do your wife, your kids, your dog, your elephant. And again, you need to have a gross amount of wealth to be able to afford one of these, and that's maybe a problem with the brand. But like, yeah, sick of having your neighbor's elephant in your shifter, you can have your elephant too. So that was last 5 days for me. It was just epic, super hypercar overload, and I'm still just kind of high from it. Yeah. So if you have any questions about either car, please leave them below, and also leave more questions. I'm getting a lot of people saying I like what you're doing, which is great. Thank you. I'm having so much fun doing this channel, but like, leave me questions for um, Talking with Jonny here. And I'm just looking at the questions you left, and it's like watches, enjoying the content, watches. But I think there are some questions. Let's see. And people like the good wood video, which was great. Okay, amazing chat. Especially love the Ferrari F12 story. Please do more of those kind. I will. Actually, I'll tell you a great one in a second about someone. I feel like there's one. No, that's not a question. Okay, I'll just tell that story. So, how did I get to drive my first Veyron? So there's this guy named Franz what's his name? Pefkin. Franz Josef Pefkin. I had a 27-hour travel day yesterday. I'm totally out of it. Franz Josef Pefkin, Professor, Doctor, Engineer Franz Josef Pefkin. He was the CEO of Bentley and the CEO of Bugatti. And I met him at a Bentley dinner. And they sat me across from him. He's this very large, imposing, kind of master of the universe German dude. Really nice guy. Loves old British cars, loves cigars. We got along famously. But talking to him, and I'm asking him about, because at the time, like, remember, the Veyron went 253 miles an hour, and then the Super Sport went, I don't know, something stupid like 273 miles an hour, whatever it was. And I said, Dr. Pefkin, like, where does it end? Like, these numbers they're crazy. And he looks at me, and I'll butcher his accent, but he goes, yeah, of course, the top speed is for the children, but the Veyron, as you know, is all about acceleration and braking. And I looked at him and I said, Dr. Pefkin, I've actually never driven a Veyron. This is back at Pebble Beach in 2010. So I've been like 1 month on the job at Motor Trend at this point. And he's like, you've never driven a Veyron? And he turns to the PR girl sitting next to me. This man must drive a Veyron. We're at dinner. Within moments, my phone is exploding. Like, is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.? Is that okay? Yeah, okay. And I show up, and it's a Veyron Grand Sport. And Butch Leitzinger is there, who was actually Andy Wallace's teammate when they won Le Mans. And I remember I had a backpack, and I go, can this go in the trunk? And he's like, no, that won't fit in the trunk. And it was literally a backpack. So I had to put it on the floor. Poor Butch had to deal with it while we drove. But yeah, just awesome. Just, again, I was in love with Veyrons before that moment, and that just solidified that moment. And I'd see Pefkin over the years. I'd always see him like at Pebble. Like, sometimes I'd sit next to him at the Gooding auction because he would bid on stuff, but he'd meticulously keep track of everything that went. Saw him one time at a cigar at Autostadt in Wolfsburg, like VW HQ. They have a smoking room. Okay, let's see if I can actually find a question. Okay, love a wrist check. Really appreciate the advice. This watch advice. You're probably the only guy in SCR that would be fun to have a beer with. Yes, because the other two do not drink alcohol. Love all your content, and I'll watch it, but there's so many car reviews out there. Let us live vicariously through you. Do more videos like Goodwood. Would love to see a walk around at Good Vibes or other LA car culture events. Okay. As some of you may know, I do a car show, Cars and Coffee, with my buddy Sang Yoon at the Helms Bakery. I guess I can just announce it here. It's not a secret. No one's ever heard it, so maybe it's a secret. But anyways, September 21st, that's the next one. And it's just a great Cars and Coffee. You show up it starts at 8, show up at 7, starts at 8, drink coffee, eat breakfast burritos, and go home at 10. And we filmed like a part 1. We didn't think we had enough content to really like put out a whole thing, so we're going to film the second one, and that will go out as its own episode. Good Vibes. That's interesting. I feel Good Vibes has like too much press. It was kind of our secret little thing, and Good Vibes, remember, used to be the secret Porsche Breakfast Club. Secret Porsche Breakfast Club before the pandemic, and then it became Good Vibes because Newcomb's had shut down and nobody was eating breakfast. So even though we kept the name Good Vibes Breakfast Club, anyhow, yeah, maybe. But I'm gonna do something at Pebble, kind of a walkthrough at Pebble, and it'll probably be like the Quail, but probably also I think I'm going to Legends of the Autobahn. I'm gonna go see the Gordon Murray people. See my boy Dario Franchitti, and obviously do Sunday on the Lawn. So we'll see how that goes. But thanks, that's good. Okay, so here's one. Congrats on the new channel. Heck yeah, on car show walks, including some Cars and Coffee. All right. I would love to see you leverage your Motor Trend relationships and do some insider behind the scenes content with engineers, designers, etc. like Savage Geese does. You bring a great POV as a humble but outstanding, yeah, I'm humble, car journalist, blah, blah, blah. He says very nice things about me. I don't take compliments well. Well, we made a video about this, and it'll go live 2 days after you're watching this, next week. So, um, I interviewed Reuven Moore, who is the head of R&D at Lamborghini, my buddy, who used to be known as Dr. Crazy Official. That's right. Dr. Crazy got appointed to the head of R&D for Lamborghini, which, I love that. So I will do that, and I'll make a point to do more interviews with engineers and designers, and I love doing that. If you ever watched or listened to the Inevitable podcast, we spent a lot of time talking to designers. Not enough time talking to engineers, but a lot of time talking to designers, and I love speaking to them. So, no more watches, please. All right, so that's what one guy says. And I'm not calling out the names because all the names. Well, actually, this is a readable name. Wes Coleman 1360. Okay. Okay, fine. Maybe I just forgot. I'm really tired. Michael Sharp 81. Hi, Jonny. Here's what I'd like to see. Rate roast my ride. Ask us to submit our rides. Cars and coffee walkthroughs. Same thing. Rate roast. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I need to get like a guy here, like what Matt does with Zach, where you can actually show visuals. I think that would really help this little part of the show. Yeah, I don't know. Rate my ride. I don't want to break anyone's heart or anything like that. Okay. All right, here's one. Why do modern new cars interiors start rattling within the first few weeks, months of owning the car? What are car companies doing wrong? Is it plastics or bad adhesives? Well, interesting question. I don't think that's true across the board. For instance, my Rivian. What's interesting about the Rivian and is that there will be a rattle, but it's going to go away in 2 weeks. It's just kind of like things settle. It's very strange. We did have, I thought it was the door trim, but it was actually the roof rail at 36,000 miles started making a sounded like the window was open noise. They came over and fixed it. That was easy. But like my little Toyota, which only gets driven hard, it barely does any like normal miles. I just run around the canyons with it. Um, that thing doesn't rattle at all. So, anecdotally, of course, I've driven. It's hard to say with press cars. I'll share something with you. Press cars really don't make bad noises like that because they're analyzed constantly. The prep companies, a little inside baseball for you here, but the prep companies, they prepare them for the journalists. And I found a note where it was a Dodge. What are those called? Durangos, Dodge Durango, and it had like a big sheet with like a checklist that was like problems that they noticed with the car that were then addressed, and it was like, right rear quarter window rattling between 60 and 80 miles an hour, fixed. So press cars, they don't have little squeaks and niggles and stuff like that. So hard for me to say, but plastics definitely aren't the greatest thing for car interiors, but they are cheap. And yeah, I don't know. So it's a great question. I don't know. Okay. Here's one, Matt. This guy I think is gonna be a future stalker. Matt Jelinek. I think luckily he's in Australia. This should be called The Mind with Jonny. Your brain is awesome. Okay. 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 I'm just looking for more questions. First whiskey for a Canadian Portuguese guy to buy. Ooh, a whiskey question. I like this. This is from Malkinox. Well, uh, you know, we're talking bourbon. Um, I would say, go with the greats, meaning the ones that are just consistently good over the years that have really proved themselves, that are relatively easy to get. So Booker's jumps to mind. It's made by Jim Beam. High proof, delicious. They're usually like between 125 and 130 proof, which is strong. And if you're a Scotch drinker, that's way higher than you're used to, but they're wonderful. And each batch is different, which is great. Collect them all, as I like to do. Then there's like Blanton's, which is a lower proof, but nice and approachable. Always delicious, just regular old Blanton's. Or you can find Blanton straight from the barrel, which is, again, high proof. Elijah Craig, another banger, I think, especially the barrel strength Elijah Craig's. And then there's oh god, Noah's Mill / Rowan's Creek, and they're both from Willet, and they're both wonderful, much better than the inexpensive Willet products. And both those are in the $50 to $60 range, and they're decent proofs, and those are good places to start. All right. So should we expect Drinking with Jonny at some point? Yeah, maybe. That's from King IAF. Good content was good. Good mix of podcast and car review. Okay, cool. Goodwood video was great. Working in social media myself. Just do what you like. Don't pander to the algorithm. If it's good content, it'll grow regardless. Well, trying that. Okay. So this is from Under the Cuff Official, who another guy like Horace who sends me a lot of straps. His name's Matt. Good dude. So he's talking about the Temerario, 900 plus horsepower V8 4-wheel drive. Hybrid hypercars such as the Temerario are now only 250,000 pounds. That's British pounds. Man, the Temerario in US dollars is closer to 400,000. You heard me. It's a lot of money. But everything's a lot of money these days. So there you go. How do you think this would compare against previous gen $1 million hybrid hypercars such as the P1 and the 918 Spider? Very interesting. So I think the big difference is going to be materials, because the P1, for instance, is a carbon fiber tub. The Temerario is an aluminum space frame. So the P1 is just going to be lighter and stronger. So honestly, I think that's going to be the big difference, and that'll pay off in terms of like absolute handling on the racetrack. 918, I think, is also a carbon fiber tub, and that's kind of that's where the money is, because the power's all there. And again, the Temerario, which I forgot to mention when I was talking to you guys, revs to 10,000. Something that no car really does. Maybe the Gordon Murray, the T50 and the T33, and if you put it in launch mode, the engine actually revs to 10,250, which is just bonkers. And what that means is that the engine is going to rev a lot higher in subsequent models. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, it compares very favorably. We're also at the point where like a lot of bog standard. Sorry, I was in England for a while. Bog standard SUVs will beat Ferrari F40s in a straight line. A lot of them. So that's the world we were in. Okay, watches. Do a vlog at Pebble Beach. This is from Daniel Charlson. Okay. Keep the videos coming. Buy some Meta Ray-Bans. Do I have to? Okay. User EU4ZE7EZ2B. I got to stop reading these names out. Try and cover the Bridgehampton Car Show. It's called The Bridge. Not many people cover it. Looks like it's a great show. I'm going to the Bridge next month. No, 2 months, mid-September. And I'm going to cover the Bridge. Won't be full coverage, but I'll do what I can. I'm very excited because I know Jeff Einhorn and Shamin Abbas, who are I think the organizers. There's probably other people, but I know them real well, and I think they've been inviting me for like the last 9 years, and I've never been able to go. And this year, I'm going. So excited about that. Listen to Thrice. A watch and learn podcast didn't work out too well for Farah, so it might not transfer well. Well, that's like almost a lawsuit. I don't even know though. I know Matt's side of the story. Yeah, it didn't work out too well. It's true. And then he says, listen to Thrice. I watched Teddy Baldassare for watches and wouldn't watch him for cars. Oh, right in the heart, Thrice. Okay, fine. +1 for Pebble Beach, though. All right. I mean, this is a compliment, but I like the unpolished guide walkthrough you did of Goodwood. Okay. Let's see here. Hey, Johnny. This is Alex Dagger. I would like if you could compare the driving dynamics of the Porsche Macan to Cayenne, especially models like the GTS or Turbo. Appreciate. Oh, okay. I assume you're talking about the gasoline-powered Macans. Cayennes are always better. You know, they are larger, so there's that. But you know, I would say Porsche had a lot more to do with the development of the Cayenne than they did with the Macan. So there's that. Plus, at the high end, you know, you get stuff like the Cayenne Turbo, Turbo S, Turbo GT, which are the only better SUV for driving is an Urus. You know, I mean, they're just like top of the pile, top of the game. So yeah, not much comparison. They cost a lot more, so keep that in mind. Waiting for Drinking and Smoking with Jonny series. It's from Nam Justin. All right. MAPCO 15. If you can buy any car in history at its original MSRP, no inflation, with the money you currently have, selling cars is okay. So something like an 05 Ford GT is $150K. What are you buying? Well, I couldn't afford that. Yeah. I have a fun job. I don't have a very lucrative job. I mean, I do all right. But you know what I'm saying? I ain't buying no $150,000 car. The Mercedes Gullwing, which is, I don't know if it's my absolute favorite car, but it's up there. I want to say a Gullwing was like 13,000 when new. I could be totally wrong, but it wasn't, you know, maybe 20. I think it was 13,000. That is something I would buy, and I wouldn't have to sell very much. A couple watches just to afford it. Also, a Countach, I don't know what they cost. What did a Countach cost back in 1975? I don't know. But yeah, I could maybe sell the Toyota and buy a Countach. Assuming they're like 45, 50,000. I don't know. I honestly don't know what they cost back then. CLS 63 AMG Wagon 34. Watch content is welcome. Milgas owner here. Milgaus. Yeah, boy, that Milgaus is a funny watch. I don't know if you know that it's the Rolex for scientists, which I thought I would love, but it's like real dainty. I guess they think scientists are tiny people. And I wore one for a while and just wasn't me. Was not the watch I thought it was. Was not the watch I wanted it to be. So, yeah. User H211 asks, what are some examples of souped up press cars? That's a great question. I've heard Matt Farah talk about a Ferrari 458 with challenge suspension. Another journalist mentioned an overpowered Mercedes AMG GT, etc. Well, I don't know if Matt, I guess he drove that. Oh, yeah, he did drive that. Yeah, the yellow. I don't even know the whole story, but I'll tell you the whole story. So that was our best driver's car 2011. So we drove it in 2010, and it wowed us. It was a yellow 458 Italia. Phenomenal car. Just dominated everything. And yeah, didn't think anything of it. Just thought Ferrari built a great car. And then, many years later, I met a guy named Marlon Goldberg who owns a company called Workshop 5001. And they make awesome hot rod Porsches. He was also the original engineer of Singer. I think he built the first 8 or 12 Singers. I should clarify with him at some point. And when I met him, he goes, "Oh, Motor Trend. Yeah." He goes, "Remember that yellow Ferrari you guys had? Yeah, I built that." And I was like, "Huh?" And he goes, "Yeah, I work for Ferrari Press Cars North America, and I built that thing." He's like, "Man, I chipped it like 100 horsepower. I put challenge suspension on all 4 corners. Man, fooled you guys blind." And he sure did. The punchline to that story is they gave us a 488, and I think they had the same amount of cheat dialed into it, and then they gave us an F8, and because of COVID, they just it was just normal, and so we were still doing best driver's car at the time, and we were at Laguna Seca, and the F8 was going slower than the 488 had done a couple years before, and the poor Ferrari PR person, who I'm not going to name him, her, because I haven't talked to them about this, but they were like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, what do I tell Ferrari? What do I tell Maranello? Like, it's going slower than the old car." And I'm like, "Well, you tell them, you know, if you start using steroids and then you stop, you're just normal again, you know?" So, yeah, that's the punchline there. So, there's been so many souped up cars over the years. I remember one time we had an Audi. It was just like an A6, but we had one and we tested it and it was like blisteringly quick. I forgot the numbers, but let's say it was like 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. A6, not S6, not RS6, A6. And then we had another one, and it was like a second and a half slower. And I called Audi and was like, yo, dudes, what's up? And they're like, the one we sent you has more options. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me look. Oh, yeah, there's 100-pound weight difference between the two, leather and whatnot. That's maybe a tenth. It ain't no second and a half. And they were like, oh, we don't know. So it's common. You know, like also one time I took a Toyota, it was like a Tacoma TRD Pro or something, off-roading, and it was incredible. And then a friend of mine noticed that, like, hey, look at these tires. You can't get these. These don't come from the factory. So I called Toyota, and they're like, oh my gosh, we did a Bridgestone or a Toyo or whatever event, and they left the tires on. And it's like, who do you believe? And one time, Viper ACR, and I think it's like when we Randy Pope set the then Laguna Seca production car lap record, and I'm looking at this set of tires on there, and the tread wear is 20. And I'm like, hey, yo, what's up? And they're like, oh, sorry. And they put on these that said 200, which is, a tire that a dealer would sell you. 20 is like a slick with like a line cut in it. I don't know. These things happen. So there you go. Okay, couple more. Let's see. Okay, zero. Yeah. These last questions, zero car interest, and everyone's saying, I don't know. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Well, I'm gonna wrap this one up. This has been another episode of Talking with Jonny. I'm Jonny. If you have questions, drop them right now. Leave a comment, and I'll get to them on the next one. And thank you very much. Like, share, subscribe, do all those YouTubey things. Channel is growing. We're over 7,500 subscribers in like 6 weeks, which I think is pretty good. On the this launch, my buddy Amelia Hartford was there, and she didn't know I'd started a channel, but I showed her, and she's like, give me your phone. And she's going through all the metrics and analytics. And she goes, it's very good. You're off to a good start. So, hey, you heard it from Emiliana, hearing it from me. Thank you again. And